Welcome to Motherhood, Aligned and Assigned, where we help guide mothers from symptoms to solutions.
We're Dr. Serena Kaufman and Dr. Veronica Schultz, nervous system specialists helping families discover the missing link in their wellness journey.
Join us as we translate complex health challenges into simple, actionable solutions for you and your children.
Because your family deserves to thrive,
not just survive. So we wanted to start with a little bit of a story of a kiddo that we got to see in the office here at Haven Health, and it was a 4-year-old boy who was coming in for some back pain. That was his original symptom as to why he came in. He was having some constipation and had been constipated since he was basically born, had been on MiraLax on and off his entire life. And throughout his history and exam, we realized that he was also having some really, really high blood sugar spikes, really, really high and really low. They would go super high, like dangerously high, and then crash dangerously low. They'd been seeing specialist after specialist, couldn't really figure out why he'd been tested for type 1 diabetes. They didn't want to rule it out, but they didn't necessarily have him confirm that was his diagnosis. They'd been traveling state to state to figure out what was going on with his blood sugars. And they were like, well, if this, helps with other things, hopefully this will help with that too. And among this, he was also having some really, really big emotions. So they had kind of chalked it up to him being a toddler for a couple years. And then as he was kind of getting out of those toddler years into that 4 and 5-year-old stages, they were like, well, maybe there's something more to this. Maybe his emotions are just kind of out of control always and a little bit more than the average toddler that you would expect. And so they came in, like I said, for the back pain, and his care plan was about 4 months long, which it feels like a really long time when you're going through it. But looking back after 4 months, he is now on the other side where his emotions are regulated and normal. His blood sugars are also normal. The specialist said, sometimes kids just grow out of it, but we know that is not how it works. It happened immediately after his 4-month care plan, and he is now doing great. He hasn't needed MiraLax in the last 4 months, which is incredible because he used to take it, I think, monthly before. And now he's doing just great. His parents are super excited with his progress, and they're excited to continue to maintain it now.
Wow. 4 months. Yeah, when you're writing a 4-month care plan, you think, dang, this is a lot. And then you look back and you're like, wait a minute. By removing stress from the nervous system, because that's all we're doing, right? We're not curing blood sugar dysregulation. We're not curing anything. We're removing stress from the nervous system. Then the body was able to heal its metabolism, like hormone regulation with blood sugar, emotional regulation, and digestion in 4 months. That's crazy. That's really cool.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people ask, what does chiropractic have to do with all of those things? We get back pain. A lot of people who take their babies to chiropractors get the pooping thing, right? That's a very common, I get it, chiropractic can help my baby poop. But let's dig a little deeper. If we're removing stress from the nervous system, which can help connect your brain to gut to help your baby poop, what else can we do? If it's the nervous system that controls all cells, organ systems of the body, we can do anything. And by we, I mean our bodies have an unlimited ability to heal and adapt, right? If there's not stress held in our nervous system. And so both of us in our offices, since we're PX docs, we start by talking about the 3 T's, right? So we have 3 stressors that our nervous system encounters, 3 categories. We have emotional stress, we have physical stress, and we have chemical stress. And Dr. Veronica, how was this baby boy's mom's pregnancy, and how was her birth?
Very, very stressed. She was in bed rest for the last, I want to say, maybe even trimester, last couple months of her pregnancy. She had a history of loss. He was a C-section baby.
Okay, so we have emotional stress for mama, and moms are power cords for our babies, right, in utero. And I don't know how you approach this really gently, because I never want to make moms feel guilty of well, shoot, I was so stressed when I was pregnant, and now is that why I have this baby? And it's well, that's just what we were dealing with, right? And we can only do so much with what we know at the time. And that's just what it was, and now we know about it, and that's part of the story, and we can move forward now. But being really stressed, emotionally stressed in pregnancy does have an impact on baby. And that's not just chiropractor wacky doodles saying that. We have research to show that high cortisol levels in mom from emotional stress have a negative impact on baby. So that's a piece of the puzzle. And then...
Well, and I think If I can kinda interject here, I think it can we explain the 3 Ts really fast? Because then I feel like that just makes a little bit more sense as to why that is a
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think that the best way to approach something like that, and so that moms aren't carrying that stress, is when we just
Mhm.
look at it from a scientific perspective of why their nervous system stays stuck. And so I start with the 3 Ts with them and say, like, "Here are the things that the nervous system likes to pick up on," and then it's like, "Oh, actually, I remember I was actually going through a really hard time doing this," and then it's like, "Yeah." So it's not anything, it's not, like, the mom's fault, 'cause I have said that in a way where they're like, "Oh my gosh, now my stress is stressing me out and my kids," and it's like, "No, that's not the point." I just want to break down, like, how the nervous system stays stuck in the first place, because a big question that we get in my office is like, "Well, how did it get here?" Right? Like, what the he's 4, right? How much stress does he actually have? And it's like, "Okay, well, let me explain to you where stress actually comes from." And so if it's okay, I'll kinda just walk through the 3 Ts really quickly as to, like, where, like, the source of stress comes from. So, we've got thoughts, we've got traumas, and we've got toxins. And so we like to say, like, the physical, the mental, and then the chemical. The physical is birth trauma. That's where, most people, I would say actually everyone, starts in this world physically stressed, right? That going through labor and being birthed is a very stressful process, and especially now these days, we have a lot of interventions that take place to make it even more stressful. So even if you have a natural laboring delivery, there's still some stress on both mom and baby, but then when you have C-sections, when you have forceps, when you have vacuums, when you have all these extra interventions, epidurals, Pitocin, it adds and compounds on the stress of the introduction into the world. So being a human is stressful. And then as you grow up, you learning to navigate the world, you've got falls, you've got accidents, you've got car accidents, sports injuries, repetitive injuries, right? These are all of the physical things that our body stores. And that's what for a long time people thought chiropractic ended at in helping was those physical traumas, right? The back pain, the discomfort, the headaches, the migraines, all of that. That's only one piece of the puzzle. Then you've got the toxins, and that is what I feel like is, like, the most trendy right now is, like, getting rid like, low toxin, non-toxic, all of those things, greenwashing, right? And that's important because we don't wanna overload our system with the chemicals if we can, but I also am a strong believer that the Lord knew that we were gonna live in a very toxic environment, and if you look at your organ system, you have quite a few organs that work on detoxifying, but if there's stress in the nervous system, they don't work as well. So these are your foods, diet, supplements, medications, fragrances, right? These are all the things that we as usually holistic moms and doctors try to avoid or at least limit to try and give our bodies the best fighting chance of detoxifying these things. But then you have the thoughts, and these are the ones that weigh a little bit heavier, and I would say the heaviest of the 3 because you don't necessarily get to turn them off. You can't really run away from them because of the other 2 and how they stack on top of each other. So you've got the thoughts, which is the emotional stress. This is the anxiety, the depression, anxiousness whenever we are raising babies and growing babies is kind of a worrisome period, but then you've got fertility struggles, you've got moves, you've got job changes, you've got relationship struggles, right? These are the things that our brain holds on to, and they're really what shapes the world around us. It what tells us, are we safe or are we not safe? And so if we are stuck in that stress mode from the thoughts, from the traumas, from the toxins, our brain shuts off. And Dr. Serena is going to talk a little bit more about the mom and dad brain to protect or to logically decide what to do with that. And so all that to say, when you've got those 3 things and you've got all this stuff compounding on one another, it's not that technically a mom's stress was the only thing. It's just that that's the equation of everything that this baby has been through. You've got the stress of mom during pregnancy, you've got the stress of birth during labor and delivery, and then you've got the stress of literally being a human in this day and age, right? With like all of the toxins in our environment. If it was as simple as mom, just don't be stressed anymore, obviously we'd have a lot less stressed out babies, right? But it's the compounding nature of what it is that honestly we're going through these days that kind of switches the nervous system on into that like fight, flight, survival stress mode.
Yeah. So that's part of baby's story and who you're working with, but also that's part of mom's story of why she got stuck in that emotional stress. That's how it impacts us, right? And so everyone is impacted by that. And so to continue what Dr. Veronica was saying is when we have a lot of those stressors, especially early and often in life, it basically overfills our capacity or our bucket for the outside of our brain, the cortex, to manage and sort through all of that information and sensory overload, essentially. So Our brain is trying to sort through emotional stuff, chemical stuff, and physical stuff. And it gets to be too much. And the cortex says to protect our body, our physical self, and our spiritual self, honestly, I would say, our cortex says, okay, let's down-regulate a little bit because we can't process all of this at once. And it kind of shunts processing to our primitive brain or amygdala, or what Dr. Veronica likes to call the dad of the brain. Right? If the cortex, the outside of our brain, that's usually sorting and organizing and has higher level thinking, executive function, that kind of thing, we can call that the mom of the brain. When the mom of the brain gets overwhelmed, she says, nope, time for dad to take over. And dad is like, okay, that's fine, but I'm the protector. And the amygdala, that primitive brain, is going to view most things or lots of things more than normal as a threat. So information coming your way is that's a threat, that's a threat, that's a threat. And what happens when our brain is processing information as a threat is that it shifts our hormone production, like from a gland, our hypothalamus tells our pituitary, which kind of controls what organ systems it turns on for hormones, what to produce. So it's going to shunt everything over to the adrenals are producing cortisol and adrenaline. And if that's the mode that's on, that's inflammation, that's anxiousness, right? Our heart rate's up, our respiration's up, our digestion is shut down, right? Because if we're in fight or flight, cortisol, adrenaline mode, we're not digesting, we're not pooping, essentially, we're not sleeping well. And so that's how we get, and then it just becomes this vicious cycle on a metabolic level too, right? If this kiddo was stuck in fight or flight and his adrenals were just kicked on, he wasn't producing digestive hormones or enzymes or whatever to poop. That's probably why he wasn't able to regulate blood sugars, because he didn't have that side of his nervous system firing as optimally as it could be.
Hmm.
And so, like, okay, well, how does chiropractic fix that? What's the point of chiropractic in nervous system care? Is that part of the noise going to our brain is physical stress in our nervous system. That's just creating so much noise to our cortex. So when you're wearing a bra that's too tight and you're just so irritated all day. You don't really know that you're irritated all day, and you take it off and you're like, wow, it was the bra. and, and like that's a perfect example of something that was irritating in our system was sending information to our brain and creating a noisy brain and sending irritating signals our way, right? And that's exactly what's happening with stress stuck in our nervous system that accumulates from emotional, physical, chemical stressors. And so by removing that stress from the nervous system, we can quiet down the brain. And research is showing from Dr. Heidi Havik that removing what we call chiropractic subluxations or vertebral subluxations, which is dis-ease in the nervous system, we're lighting up the cortex or the mom of the brain by 20%. And it has to be by the removal of a subluxation, right? This isn't happening with just general pushing on the spine, getting pops, right? This is a really specific, focused, intentional removal of subluxation, lighting up the cortex by 20%, which downregulates the primitive brain by 20%, right? So we're waking up mom, allowing for organization, higher level thinking. We're allowing the body to come out of fight or flight and into this adaptable state where it can tap into rest hormones, digestive hormones, growth hormones, all of that kind of thing, which is incredible. It's so
Yeah.
exciting.
I kind of want to I want to highlight two things. So you said it has to be a very specific area, right? Like I was thinking back to your analogy of like if the bra is tight, it's like if you take off your socks or if you know remove your pants, like if those are things aren't bothering you, you're just getting dressed, right? But if you take off the thing that's irritating you, then it's like, oh my gosh, I can breathe. And it's no longer the thing that is like distracting or being noisy to my brain, right? Because if you're a mom, you're trying to do all the things and you're like, something is making me uncomfortable, but I haven't even taken the time to figure out what it is, right? You can remove everything else, but until you remove the thing, it's not going to change you or change your attitude or change anything. And you're not even gonna realize it's there until it's gone, right? And so I also want to, I think I remember us talking about this last time of like 20% is so huge, and I know for a lot, like, maybe, the average person listening to this, it's like, "Well, that's, like, not even half," right? But you have to remember that we are doing the adjustments over a series. It's not like your average chiropractor where you're coming in once a month or once a week even to start off with. You're coming in 3, 4, sometimes daily, and when you are activating the cortex 20%, 3 to 4 to 6 times a week, that is a big deal, and that is kind of how, if you think about how a habit is started, right? You don't just expect to lose 10 pounds in a week, right? But if you are constantly putting in that work and activating the parts of your body, right, through nutrition and all these things, you're going to create these habits. Well, this is like a straight shortcut, right? Because it's even better than eating, vegetables or taking your supplements or drinking water. It's literally telling the brain, hey, this is what I want you to do. I'm just going to remove this so that you can kind of finally figure out how it all works together. And then that 20% adds up immensely. If you're consistently turning down your dad brain, your protective brain, your amygdala, and turning on your organization over a period of time, this is why we do care plans, it shifts the brain and honestly change how it will physically look, but then also how it'll like physiologically function.
I think that's perfect. I'm gonna let you like mic drop on your end. And then one other thing that people have usually is a tacked on question to how's chiropractic changing the brain? Well, what about my anxiety medication or my ADHD medication? And it's like, well, I can just take that and I feel fine. Or can I just take that instead of getting chiropractic care? And this took me a while to think about, but essentially, well, you can do whatever you want, right? I'm not here to tell you what medications to take or not to take. I'm here to support people if they don't want to be on medication, and I will serve you to the best of my ability, no matter what you decide. But the thing about, so a noisy brain can result in anxiety, ADHD, depression, even, right? It's a noisy brain. And because you have lots of information that your mom brain can't sort out. And so, what medications are going to do is they're going to kind of dampen the alarm, right? Because the anxiousness, the ADHD, we can call that an alarm system. Our body is saying, hey, something is not right, and we're trying to tell you about it, right? You're feeling anxious not because you're bad at regulating your emotions, you're feeling anxious because your brain is noisy, and we're trying to tell you something is wrong. And medications are just going to just like put a towel over the alarm system and dampen it, right? And a lot of people, especially folks on ADHD, are like, yeah, I don't love who I am. I'm not expressing myself fully on my ADHD medication. And this can happen with anxiety meds too, but I need it to function. It's like, okay, well, where chiropractic shines is that we can quiet the brain and allow you to express yourself to your full potential without any dampening, right? It's doing the opposite, right? The founders and the father of chiropractic, that was one of his best thoughts is chiropractic is removing interference from the nervous system so that life can express itself fully.
Yeah, it's basically because if you think about medication, yes, it will quiet down the symptoms, but it also quiets everything. Your personality,
Mm-hmm.
your it slows everything down. Your brain, how it perceives the world, how it literally changes the way you perceive everything. And so yes, it's like it will help you function, quote unquote, in one way, but it'll also decrease function in every other way, right? And so it's not about quieting these things so that we can get through it. It's about getting to the root cause of why those things are there, removing that issue so that you can essentially enhance everything else. I was just talking to someone on a consultation the other day, and her little guy was experiencing a lot of maybe potentially like I don't even want to diagnose it, but just a lot of noisy brain type of symptoms, right? There was aggressive behavior, there's head banging, there's toe walking, there's all of these things. And at the end of the call, I said, I know that your little guy is probably such a sweetheart. And she almost was in tears because she was like, he is. He's just not my little boy right now. And it's like, yes, if you put him on medication, those aggressive behaviors will probably stop, but your little boy won't come back, right? We get to kind of work together and say, like, we're going to remove why he's feeling this way so that that more of that little boy that we all know and love can show up in life the way that we know he's been called to. And so it's just really cool that we get to kind of like, I think that was the last thing I told her was like, we get to bring your little boy back, right? Let's do this. And that's really what chiropractic is all about.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like the quote, you can't medicate your way out of a miswired system. I feel like that's a pretty good. And people get that. Like, yeah, that's true. I think people know that the medications are masking, and that's what they need to get through life. But people are looking for more answers, and I'm excited that we can offer them.
And I think that quote is powerful because you also can't supplement your way. You can't eat your way. You can't meditate your way. Like it really like you can't
Mhm.
insert your way of regulating here out of a miswired system.
Mhm. Yeah. But your brain can heal. God created you to adapt and heal. And that's how your body was designed. And so our goal is to get your body back to the way God designed it, to
Mm,
adapt, heal to stressors. So you can do hard things
mm,
without anxiousness, without blood sugar dysregulation,
mm,
without, right? Because you can, I don't think any of us ever want to say, stop doing things you love that are causing you some dysregulation, whether it's impact sports, whether it's a really hard job that you love. Our goal is to remove the noise so that you can do what you were designed and created to do.
mm.
So, yeah.
Amen. I love that because sometimes people are like, "Do I have to stop going to the gym? Do I have to stop?" And I'm like, I will say, I won't lie, I do say depending on how stressed your nervous system is, yes, for a time. Maybe we can talk about that. Like, it's not
Yeah.
forever, but when should you back off and when should we add on? Yeah,
Yeah. And what's
that's probably for another
the
day.
risk versus benefit in a way of like if the thing that you're doing is really helpful for your mental health,
Right,
but hard on your body, like, okay, what's the balance there?
right.
Um, yeah, it's always a discussion.
Yeah. Well, I think that wraps up today. Thank you for listening. This is how chiropractic adjustments change the brain. We are excited to continue on this journey of just like chatting about these things and hopefully providing a resource to you as a parent and, as a patient even. And so next episode, we're going to be talking about how suppressing versus solving and how chiropractic care changes the stress response at the source. So stay tuned for that. And in the meantime, Dr. Serena is going to pray us out and we will see you next time.
Dear Lord, thank you for bringing Veronica and I together a long time ago, way back into chiropractic school. Thank you for giving us our families to teach us the why behind chiropractic, the umph of what we're doing. Thank you for giving us our practices so we can serve people. And thank you for giving us the knowledge and the art of chiropractic so we can remove interference so that your creation can shine the way you designed it to. In your name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you for joining us on Motherhood, Aligned and Assigned.
We hope today's episode helped you connect the dots in your family's health journey.
Remember, this is where nervous system health meets motherhood wisdom.
Until next time, we're Dr. Veronica Schiltz.
And Dr. Serena Kaufman, supporting you as you nurture your family's well-being.
Because when you're aligned, everyone thrives.